Good afternoon. Welcome to the GDI Consulting webinar for the Air Force CFT or Contract Field Teams Opportunity. My name is Cal, and I am your artificial intelligence host today. With me is Ab Vand, VP for Capture at GDI Consulting and a subject matter expert on these self-scoring opportunities. Before starting, there are a few housekeeping notes I would like to mention. First, this webinar is being recorded and the link to the recording will be sent to you within 24 hours. Second, we will hold a Q&A session at the end. You can send your questions during the webinar by the chat system to the right of your window and Ab will address them at the end. Third, you can download this presentation by clicking on the link under File on the right-hand side panel on your window. We highly recommend you download the slide deck so that you can always refer back to it. So let's see what this webinar covers. We will first have a quick glimpse on GDI Consulting services. Then we will have a short review of how the current CFT program or contract is performing. Then we will start with providing the general information on the CFT opportunity and then dive into the proposal requirements and the scoring system, which is the main part of this webinar. Next, Ab will discuss the source selection criteria and process. As partnering is very important in the CFT opportunity, Ab will touch on that as well. Finally, before going into the Q&A, since we have done numerous self-scoring proposals before, Ab will provide recommendations based on GDI Consulting's accumulated experience on what can go wrong, where to focus, and how to allocate your resources towards a successful proposal development. So, with that, I will now hand over the control to Ab to start the webinar. Ab, you can take over now.
Hello everyone, and thank you, Cal. As Cal mentioned, it's really important that you download the presentation slides so you can refer to it. We have a lot to cover and I might be going too fast for you. So please download that. And if you're having any problems downloading it, just put in your email on the chat system and we'll send you the presentation slide deck through email. So with that, let's start very quickly mentioning the services we provide and how we can actually help you specifically towards the CFT program. So we've had more than a decade of solid performance providing proposal management and capture management to many government contractors. Approximately 226 wins in 2023. With a win rate of 81%, and we've been growing year after year. Now, in terms of our past experience on CFT, we had one small business and one large award in the previous CFT, or the one that is actually currently being executed. Now, the thing is that they have completely revamped and changed the entire RFP system. So previously it was a traditional writing type RFP, and the submission had to be, had different volumes, management volume, technical volume, that sort of thing. But right now, the new system is a self-scoring type, like GSA is also using. Things like Oasis, Astro, Alliant, if you're familiar with those are self-scoring types, and I will delve into that as we go along on this webinar. But I wanted to say that in terms of our past experience on self-scoring, we've done Oasis with 12 large wins and 41 small business contractor wins. Astro, 18 large, 29 small business. Alliant 2 UNR, 3 large and 6 small businesses that went for the unrestricted Alliant 2. HCATS, Vets 2, Navair, and many others. And I've not included over 108 contracts we had for Oasis Plus because the results are not out, so I didn't want to mention those as wins. So as a whole, we have had a 96% win rate on these self-scoring proposals, because essentially right from the beginning you know if you're going to win or not. So it's usually a higher win rate than the usual. Now, having said that, the services we're going to provide, or we can provide to you for CFT, are obviously free consultation that you can always communicate with my colleague Maron Freedy, whose contact info is on the presentation slide deck. So you can, once you download it, you can always email him or call him and set up a free consultation on CFT. We do eligibility and qualification assessment for CFT, and then once you decide to go after it, and there's not much time, we'll see, because the due date is 25th of this month, July. So full proposal development with a dedicated proposal team. We provide cradle to grave support, plus multiple and full reviews. Now, for those companies who are doing it in-house, we can provide reviews for you, red team or gold team reviews, and consultation in that regard. So those are the services. Now, as a whole, GDI has 4 different divisions: proposal development, capture management, support services, and training. And proposal development, capture management are geared towards both small and large businesses. We do eligibility score assessment, full development of proposals, reviews, staff augmentation. Under capture management, we do long-term strategic capture as well as short-term sourcing and qualification. Then for larger businesses, the support division provides competitive intel, black hat exercises, and price to win. And then finally, the training division provides both proposal development and capture management training to our clients. As per myself, I've had over 30 years of proposal writing capture management experience. I'm considered an expert on self-scoring, or some people call them scorecard type proposals, in addition, obviously, to the traditional proposal efforts. Now, in terms of self-scoring proposals, which CFT is one of those, personally, I've done over 100 of these and supervised, I think, around 180 or something. My expertise in defense, IT, and health sectors, and I've managed over 1,000 successful proposals during my career, with 22 of them being over $1 billion in the worth of the contract. And I've contributed to Washington Technology and some other GovCon in online sources. And I've held a number of webinars for various APMP chapters and Apex, or they were called PTAX previously, offices throughout the US. So that was my bio. Now, in terms of the contact info, here it is. So you can always contact me for technical questions. And then contact my colleague Maroon Freedy if you want consultation or other services. And our email and phone numbers are here. Okay, so having said that, let's start with the Air Force CFT program and look at how it's actually right now performing. So it's obviously by the Air Force. It's a multiple award IDIQ. Remember, I'm talking about the one that is currently being performed. The estimated value or the budget they set for it was $11.4 million, but it's a little bit over $3 million or less even so far spending. So they have not used the full budget at all. Number of awards, 17 awards, but only to 14 companies. Now, if you look at the right-hand side, planned award split, they had planned to award to 6 large companies and 7 small businesses. Essentially, they awarded to 14 companies. So it changed a little bit, but that's the split they had planned for. The subject is obviously maintenance and repair of the Air Force equipment and related material. Now, contract duration, 2016 towards November, I think, started, and all the way to 2025, so 10-year period. The acquisition time is strange. 2 years it took them from the start of proposal release, which was in December 2014, all the way to the contract award, which was in November 2016. So 2 years there. Okay, now let's look at some of the numbers. So here's how the spending on CFT has been going on. So you can see that starting from 2018, which was essentially the main year starting, they spent about $500 million, $515 million on CFT, but it has been, slowing down the spending year after year. So it seems that it is right now at around $350 million. Probably 2024 will be around that area too. So it has been decreasing. It's not a you couldn't say it's a very healthy contract, but it's not the fact that there's a problem with the contract itself. There are other factors that are impacting the spending of the government on CFT. Let's look at some of those. So there are three major areas: budget reallocations. As you know, the Air Force and the State and the Defense Department have been shifting budget priorities, and they're focusing on modernization and upgrading their technology. This means, they're reallocating funds from maintenance and support of the current programs, such as CFT. So that's one of the reasons. Operational efficiency. So that's another reason. Optimizing the maintenance processes, better inventory management, and adopting new technologies. All of them have reduced the need for extensive field maintenance teams. So that's another reason for the reduce in spending. And then global strategic shifts. The U.S. Government's shift towards new areas of conflict and types of warfare. All of these lead to changes in how the resources are allocated and reallocated, with less emphasis on traditional maintenance. Now, this does not mean that this program is dying. It's just the reason why the budget has been decreasing during these years. Now, in terms of how the socioeconomic categories have been paid for, you can see that the total small business spending has been a little bit above $2 billion. Small disadvantaged, $236 billion. Women-owned, $91 million. And 8A and Alaska Native, very small. But essentially, if you're a total small business, doesn't matter which of those socioeconomic, you can see that spending towards that has been quite high. So if you look at to the right-hand side graph, the pie chart, you can see the small business receives 74% of the spending of the government on CFT. So, and large businesses 26%. So this contract vehicle is good for both large businesses and small businesses. I just wanted you to understand that. Okay, so let's move forward and go to the current Air Force CFT, or the new one, and look at the details for that. So obviously it's by the Air Force. It's a multiple award IDIQ, but it is agency specific, so no other agencies are going to use it. Estimated value is now $7 billion. They have reduced it from 11.4 to $7 billion. It's essentially a 10-year period of performance, 5 years base, plus one 5-year option. Recently, it seems that most contracting offices are changing from the 1 year by 1 year option years to having just one 5-year option. So when they extend it, it's 5 more years. It's less hassle for them. Type of work, obviously maintenance and repair of Air Force equipment, aircrafts and non-aircrafts, etc. Number of awards expected 20. The previous, as I mentioned, was 17. But there is no minimum limit, and I'm going to discuss that in more detail. So there's no competition. There's no minimum limit. So any company that actually passes the requirements is awarded. The full RFP was issued on June 26th, and your proposal is due on July 25th. So not much time. And award date is expected on around August 2025. The POP, the period of performance start should be set September 2025. Okay, having said that, let's now also look at two of the pools. So they have set up two different competition pools. Small business set-aside competition pool. This is essentially for smaller requirements that require less than 100 FTEs on the CONUS side and less than 50 FTEs on the OCONUS. So overseas 50, less than 50, and within US less than 100 full-time employees. Now the second pool is full and open competition, and that's for any job that requires over 100 FTEs within US and over 50 FTEs outside US. Now, as I mentioned, there's no minimum number of awards set for each pool. So if a company is a small business and passes the requirements, they are awarded. The same for large businesses as well. Okay, moving forward, let's now look at the scoring system and the proposal system. So this is the main part of this webinar, and I'm going to dive into the details of the scoring system here. So let's start with the volume structure so you have an idea how it works. So there are 4 volumes. Volume 1 is essentially the executive summary. It's a 6-pager, 1 page for cover letter and 5 pages for the narrative summary. And you're not scored on that. That essentially does not, you have to write a good narrative summary, but it's not something that you will lose the contract on. But second volume and third volume are the more important ones. Second volume is technical. It has 2 sub-factors. Factor 1 is AS9100D certification. You have to have that. And then factor 2, it has 2 sub-factors, the technical part. The HTRO self-scoring matrix. This is essentially saying who has the minimum value. And I'm going to go into that. 40,000 points. You have to have that to actually pass this factor, this sub-factor 1. And then sub-factor 2 is the small business participation commitment document that you have to have. Past performance is volume 3. This is considered factor 3. So volume 2 and 3, factor 1, 2, 3 that I have put in orange, these are the main factors that essentially drive your win on this contract. And then volume 4 is the contract documentation, the usual administrative documents that you provide with any solicitation. So let's go into, what I'm going to discuss is essentially the factors with regards to the scoring, which is factors 1 and 2, because past performance is fairly easy. You essentially provide, and I'm going to go over that too. So with that, let's start with factor 1. Factor 1 is having that AS9100D certification. So it's a pass-fail. Either you have it, so you pass, or you don't. If you don't have AS9100D certification, you are disqualified. So if you're a company that does not have that, forget about CFT. Now you might become a subcontractor to another company, that's fine, but you cannot be the prime. So the prime must have that certification. Now in terms of organizational requirements, and I will go into partnering later on, but there are different ways. Now, if you're going prime, you're going solo prime, so you don't have any team partnering, you have to have an AS9100D certification in your company name. So that's a must. If you're a joint venture, then either the AS9100D certification must be in the name of the JV, or all the members. So each member of the JV must have that. So for a JV to be able to participate in the CFT opportunity, either the certification must be either in the name of the JV itself, or if the JV itself doesn't have that certification, that each member must have that. Now, if you're doing a prime sub teaming relationship arrangement, then the good thing is that the AS9100D certification must be in the name of the prime only. So the subs don't have to have it. They don't need the certification, and you don't need to submit it for the primes, just for the subs. Just the prime must have that and submit it. So that's the first factor, and it's a pass-fail. And we'll see later on when they are reviewing. I'll discuss the reviewing process. They're not going to, even look at the rest of your proposal if you do not have this certification. Okay, moving forward to factor 2, which is technical. Now, factor 2 technical has 2 sub-factors itself: HTRO, self-scoring matrix, and HTRO stands for highest technical rated offers. So highest technical rated offers self-scoring matrix. This is the main part of the submission, how you can actually score yourself, and I'm going to dive into all the details of that. So essentially, sub-factor 1 is to have that self-scoring matrix, and you have to have a minimum points of 40,000 to actually pass that. Now, in sub-factor 2, it's called Small Business Participation Commitment Document. And it's essentially you have to, prepare a small business participation commitment document, and it's explained what is needed. So it's a pass-fail. You just have to prepare that document, and it is even if you're a small business, you must have that. So even if you're small, you must have that small business participation. Now, do remember that as a prime, if you're a small business and you're prime, your part is also considered a small business participation as well. But even for a small business, you must provide that. So sub-factor 2 is provision of that document to the government. Okay, so factor 3, past performance. Now, you provide past performance for all the contracts that you provide under volume 2, essentially for that HTRO self-scoring matrix. For the points that you get there, you need to provide proof of the contracts that you have experience with. Now, each of those contracts that you actually provide under volume 2 for proof of your points, you also must provide information on how well you actually performed on them. So that's past performance in factor 3. So the contracts you have performed, the experience you've had, or your subcontractors and partners, they get you points on volume 2 on factor 2, but you also must provide your performance, how well you performed on them in factor 3. So there's a form, attachment 1.1, and it's at the end of section L document in the RFP. Attachment 1.1 must be filled out. A team list must also be included. If you're using subcontractors, you must list them. If you're a JV with different members, you must list them. And then if you're using commercial contracts to show your experience, and then past performance, you must provide a client authorization letter. So the client that you perform that contract for must actually sign that letter. So it's attachment 1.5 under section L document. If you're using a subcontractor or a teaming partner past performance and contracts, you need to include a consent letter from them. So that's attachment 1.4. And then finally, you need a commitment to perform as proposed letter. That's attachment 1.6, which is essentially ensures that all sides, whether it's a prime sub or a JV, are committed to joint contract performance if you're awarded the CFT program. In addition to all of that, you also have to prepare PPQ forms and ask, these are attachment 1.2, and ask and send it to your POCs for those contracts that you have performed, and ask them to send them directly to the government, not back to you. So the PPQs must be sent to the government, not to you, but of course before the due date, before July 25th at this time, even though there might be some extension or so. So that's essentially past performance. So we looked at 3 factors. Factor 1 was the AS9100D certification. Factor 2 was essentially that 2 sub-factors, the scoring on the self-scoring matrix that I will go into details, the small business participation plan, or a document actually. Those were the 2 sub-factors. And here, factor 3 is past performance that you need to provide for all the documents, for all the contracts that you provided under factor 2. Okay, let's move on. Let's look at the scoring system now. So now we are going to focus on the scoring system for CFT. So this is essentially towards what? Towards sub-factor 1, the self-scoring matrix, which is the most important part of this CFT essentially. So you have to focus here, because the other things, either you have that certification or you don't, and those documents and past performances, you prepare them. I mean, you either again have them or you don't have the past performance for the contracts. If you have the past performance, you just fill out the forms and send the PPQs out. But here, this is where analytical thinking takes into, is important. Also, how you actually do a lot of document management. So I'm going to discuss this. So there's 61,000 points, the maximum score for the experience that you can show to the government. And you need to achieve 40,000 to actually pass this. So for sub-factor 1 in volume 2, which is the self-scoring part, you need to get a minimum of 40,000 points to actually pass. There are 21 categories, and I'm going to go into each of these, and each of them have a maximum score you can get. Overall, you can get 61,000. So somehow, depending on your experience, depending on what contracts you have performed, you need to get above 40,000 points, and we're going to discuss how that is split. Now, these 61,000 points are essentially divided in 4 areas, and I want to emphasize this is my personal division. So the government has not divided the numbers. They have put in all those 23, 21, whatever different items and put in the numbers. But it's a little bit confusing. So to make it easier to understand, I have split them into 4 different categories. So there are scope-related items that you get 39,000 points. So depending on the scope of the work that you did for the government or commercial work that you did, scope of work, 39,000 points. FTE related, so full-time employee related, number of full-time employees used in the contracts, you get 15,000 points there. Whether you have secret or top secret facility clearance, maximum you get 5,000 points. And location related, they want to know if you did all your work in just one government base or non-government base, say an airport, or you have worked in different locations. So you get 2,000 points if you've done 2 or more locations, and 1,200 points if only at one location. So this is how I've split, and I'm going to discuss each of these again in more details. So I'm just going from general and going slowly into the more detailed. So those 61,000 points are split between these 4 categories. And again, as I said, these categories I have made up myself. Essentially, the government provides you with an Excel sheet, all of them one after the other. But this is how I've split it. So let's look at these one by one. So we're going to now look at the scope-related points and see how they are done. So again, here I have split them into 3 categories. Again, as I mentioned, this is not in the RFP. Don't look for these different sections within the RFP. This is just for the ease of understanding. The overall points are there in the RFP, but it's not split like this. So there are 21,000 points for aircraft-related work, and we are talking about scope-related. So anything towards aircrafts is 21,000 points. Non-aircraft, like ground vehicles and that sort of thing, is 8,000 points, and general is 10,000. I'm going to go into details of these. So overall, they make up those 39,000 points. Now let's look at whether these aircraft, non-aircraft, and general items. So for the aircrafts, there are 5 areas. For 1 to 2 engine fixed wing aircraft maintenance, if you can provide 5 contracts, you get 5,000 points. Each contract gets 1,000 points. So if you can, the maximum is 5 contracts that you can provide for this, so you can get 5,000 points. For aircraft, for fixed wing aircraft maintenance that have more than 2 engines, so larger aircrafts, again, you can have up to 5 contracts, and I've not written the contracts and points. So for all those calculations from here on, the first number, when it says 5, it means the number of contracts, and the second one is point score per contract. So 5 contracts, each contract 1,000 points, you get 5,000 points max. So maybe you only have 2 contracts for fixed wing large aircrafts with more than 2 engines. Then you get, if you have 2 contracts, you get 2,000 points. That's how you actually calculate it. Rotary wing aircraft, so helicopters and that sort of thing, you can have maximum of 5 contracts, 1,000 each, you get 5,000 points. Drone, unmanned systems, maintenance, and all that sort of thing. Again, 5 contracts, but the value point score is just 200. So overall maximum score is 1,000 points. And then aircraft, specifically aircraft engine maintenance, you get 5 contracts, 1,000, you get 5,000 points. Now, you might have a contract that does maintenance for a, say, large aircraft that you did maintenance for different parts of it, including engines. Then you can use it for both. So you can get 5,000 points because you were actually doing work on an aircraft with more than 2 engine fixed wing aircraft. So you get a point there. But you also, in addition to the type of maintenance that you did on the aircraft as a whole, you also did work on the engine. So for both number 2 and number 5, you get the points. So that's how it works. And you have 21,000 points overall for these 5 areas. 5,000, 5,000, 5,000, 1,000, and then 5,000. Overall, 21,000 points. So that was for aircraft. Now for non-aircraft, for wheeled and track vehicle maintenance, maximum 5 contracts, each 200 points, you get 1,000 points. Aviation support equipment maintenance, 5 contracts, 400 each, 2,000 points. Radar and radio equipment, ground station maintenance, 5 contracts, 200 each, 1,000 points. Low observable and other specialty coating maintenance, so all the coatings experience that you have on aircraft and others, 600 points each, 5 contracts, you get 3,000 points. Weapons and munition maintenance, 5 contracts, 200 only, you get 1,000 points. So this contract is not very, CFT is not very weapons and munition, specific. You only get 1,000 points if you have experience there. Overall, 8,000 points. So that was non-aircraft. Then for general, there are 3 areas: intermediate and depot level maintenance. So that 5 contracts, 1,000 points each, 5,000 overall. GOP, so ground operating procedures development, and FOP, flight operating procedures development. GOP, 600 points each, 5 contracts is 3,000 points. FOP is 400 points each contract times 5, 2,000 points. And overall here you get 10,000 points for the total of scope related factors being 39,000. So that's the details of the scope related factors. Let's move into the before going there, let's look at the relationship. So you can see that 54% is essentially of the points, obviously, of the 39,000 points here is for aircraft. 20% is non-aircraft, so ground vehicle and that sort of thing. And then those 3 items for general, 26%. So this is how the split works. Now let's look at the FTE related. The previous one was scope related. Now let's look at the full-time employee related score. So there are 3 areas. 1A, 1B is just 1. So it's either CONUS or OCONUS for 1A and 1B. And then 2 and 3. So number of FTEs on your largest contract. If your largest contract is, you can pick a largest contract for OCONUS, then you get 5,000 points if you had more than 2,000 employees. Now, one point before continuing, this is for large business only. The numbers are different for small businesses. The total number is 15,000. So that it's the same for large businesses and small businesses. The total out of 1, 2, and 3, when you add them up, is 3 times 5,000, which is 15,000. But the numbers are different. So this slide and this table is for large businesses. So if your largest contract has more than 200 FTEs used in it, you get 5,000 points. It doesn't matter if it's CONUS or OCONUS. But for lower points like 4,000, 3,000, 2,000, 1,000, you can see that the numbers for CONUS and OCONUS are different. So, for example, if you had between 189 to 199 FTEs on a CONUS project, you get 4,000. But the number reduces to 101 to 199 for OCONUS. So, essentially, for OCONUS, except for the 5,000 point, you need to provide less FTEs and get the same number of points. So that was number of FTEs, either 1A or 1B. So you have to decide which will give you the higher score. Maybe you have a CONUS contract in which you had, say, 162 FTEs. Okay, for 162, you get 3,000 points. But you have an OCONUS contract that has only 102 FTEs used in it. Now, if you look at this table, 1B under 4,000 is 101 to 199. So it's better to actually use that contract with lower number of FTEs, but you will get 4,000 points instead of 3,000 points. So it's one of these two that you have to decide. Now, number 2 is maximum number of FTEs transitioned in 30 days. So you pick one of the contracts that has the maximum number of FTEs in terms of transition in 30 days, and you can see the numbers. So those number of FTEs transitioned within 30 days, you get the points either between 5,000 point to 1,000 point. Now, for 90 days, the same thing. So maximum number of FTEs transitioned in 90 days. Again, you can see that the numbers are lower compared to 30 days, except for 5,000 points, which is above 200. But 4,000, 3,000, 2,000, 1,000 points, you can see that the numbers are less for 90 days compared to 30 days. So again, here you have to find out, but there is no difference between CONUS or OCONUS here. So just pick the best contract, whether it's CONUS or OCONUS, doesn't matter. Highest number of transitioned FTEs in 30 days and highest number of transitioned FTEs in 90 days, and get those points. So that's for large business. Now the same table exists for small business. I'm discussing small business now. So this is again for 15,000 points, but you can see that the numbers have been reduced. So 1A and 1B, CONUS and OCONUS, you can see that for 5,000 you get number of FTEs on your largest contract must be 75, actually that should be 75 or higher. And then 4,000 is 51 to 74, 3,000 is 26 to 50, and 2,011 to 25, and 1,001 to 10 contracts, 1 to 10 FTEs. If you're using an OCONUS contract, everything is lowered. So again, pick that contract that will give you the higher score, not necessarily the higher number of FTEs, depending on whether it's CONUS or OCONUS. Looking at number 2 and 3, maximum number of FTEs transitioned in 30 days and in 90 days, you can see the numbers again. 90 days is less than 30 days, so just pick the best contract that you will get the highest score. As I said, for large businesses here, for number 2 and 3, being CONUS or OCONUS doesn't matter. You just have to find out which contract has the highest maximum number of FTEs transitioned in either 30 days or 90 days. So that's how you actually get your points for FTE related score. 15,000 overall, whether it's small business or large. Now let's look at the two other factors, the FCL and the location related score. So facility clearance and location related. In terms of facility clearance, if you have a secret facility clearance, you get 3,000 points. If you have a top secret facility clearance, you get 5,000 points. Now, one point I want to mention here is that for being on the IDIQ, for being on this vehicle, having a facility clearance is not a requirement at this point. So they're not going to disqualify you, but essentially you will not be able to do any work, any task orders, if you don't have a facility clearance. So maybe you're getting your secret facility clearance, or something like that is interim, but you need to have it once you're awarded, because the task orders are required. But as far as the requirements, at least it's not written anywhere that you do need a facility clearance, or they're going to put you aside, disqualify you if you don't have facility clearance at this point for getting the award for the IDIQ. Multiple locations, you get 1,200 if you have worked at one location, which obviously everybody has, but you get 2,000 points if you have worked at 2 or more locations. Now, when they say worked, it means you had 2 or more FTEs. So if you had a contract with 1 FTE in it, that doesn't count as a location, as an extra location. So you have to have at least 2 locations, 2 FTEs, per location to get these points. So, and you get 7,000 points here. So to summarize, we saw how the 39,000 points were calculated in 3 areas, if you remember: aircraft, non-aircraft, and general. FTE related was based on 3 items that we discussed, which were different for small business and large businesses, but essentially the total comes to 15,000. Facility clearance was 5,000 if you have top secret, and 3,000 if you are secret, and 0 if you don't have either. Location related, maximum 2,000 points if you have worked at 2 or more locations, having 2 or more FTEs at each location, or 1 location is 1,200 points. So this is how the overall 61,000 points is calculated. Okay, a few more points. So 61,000 points maximum. 40,000 is the cutoff point. So you need to be above 40,000. Obviously, you don't need to get 61,000 points, and there's no competition. So it's not that the more you have, the more chance you have to win. No. If you are above 40,000, you just get a pass. That's it. So they're not going to compare your score with the others. Now, in terms of contract requirements, so as we discussed, 39,000 points were scope related, and 15,000 were FTE related. So you have to prove those through contracts, through past performance that you've done, past experience that you've done, and the RFP calls this work sample, essentially contracts, experience that you've done. Now, these can be federal contracts that you've done or commercial contracts. So all commercial contracts are acceptable. Standalone contracts or task orders under IDIQs and BPAs are acceptable. But remember, multiple or single award IDIQs or BPAs by themselves are not acceptable. So you have to provide orders or task orders under those IDIQs and BPAs. And note, there's no value limit, minimum limit. So they don't, if you did a contract for $100, that's acceptable, as long as it's there and it's related to one of these point factors. Contracts can be prime contracts or subcontracts. So maybe you did a subcontract for another prime. That's acceptable. However, for FTE related and FCL factors, only prime contracts are acceptable. Of course, FCL is essentially company-wide, but FTE related, so all those that maximum number of FTEs that you use, you have to use contracts that you were prime on, not subcontracts. So that's an issue you have to remember. Contracts must have been administered within the past 5 years. So any contracts that were ongoing or maybe ongoing and completed, doesn't matter, but it must be after 28th of June 2019, because the contract, the RFP was issued on 28th of June 2024. Going back 5 years is 28th of June 2019. So the experiences that you bring to the table must have been after that date. Maybe you got the contract 20 years ago, doesn't matter. But it must have been completed after that date or must be ongoing. If it's ongoing, it's fine. At this time, I mean. Okay, so though that was a discussion of how the scoring system actually works. Now let's look at how the Air Force is going to go through the source selection process to understand how the system works there. So the source selection process, to understand that, first we have to see how the selection type is. I mean, is it a subjective or objective way of actually thinking? So it's actually good in that, as you remember, they're not going to compare you with anyone, and it's essentially no subjective way of reviewing your proposal. Let's look at it. So factor 1, AS9100D certification, either you have it or you don't have it. I'm trying to make it clear. Obviously, maybe you don't provide the correct documents and things like that, or the documents are missing. I'm not discussing that, but in terms of the certification itself, either you have it or you don't. So it's a pass-fail as far as the government is concerned. They check to see if the certification is there, you pass. Technical, factor 2, technical sub-factor 1, which is that self-scoring matrix. If you're above 40,000 points, you pass. That's it. They're not going to compare you with others. You pass if you're above 40,000. If you have sub-factor 2, small business participation commitment document, obviously written properly per the requirements, you pass. That's it. And then past performance. If you provide the past performance documents needed for all those experiences that you provided for sub-factor 1 under factor 2, the self-scoring matrix that we discussed, all those points, and you provide proper past performance for those, you pass. So you can see there's no subjective way of actually, going through a management write-up or a technical write-up, and how well you've written your management volume, how well you've written your technical volume. Nothing there. So that's the good thing. So they're not going to compare you, and there's no subjective part to this. If you prepare your proposal well, if you have those experiences, if you have that certification, if you provide the past performance, you actually win this contract. That's the good thing about it. Now, in terms of the process that they're going to go through, they first look at factor 1. So they make sure that you have that AS9100D certification. If you have it, they move to the second step. If you don't, they're not going to look at anything else in your proposal. They're going to disqualify you, put you aside. If you pass, then they're going to look at sub-factor 1 under factor 2, which is that self-scoring matrix. They're going to validate your points. So maybe you've come up with 46,000 points. So they're going to validate one by one all the points that you've claimed. How do they validate it? By the documents that you provide. So that's why it's called self-scoring. You score yourself and you provide the documents needed to validate it. So they go through the documents that you have provided, and those documents are essentially award documents, and so they're official documents, not any letter that you write or any writing that you provide. It's essentially award documents and similar that many of them have to be signed by the owner of the contract and things like that. So you self-score yourself, you provide your self-scoring matrix and the documents, and they check. If you're above 40,000, you pass this stage. If you're not above this 40,000, they put you aside. So they're not going to go to the third step. If you are above 40,000, then it goes to the third step, which is technical factor 2, sub-factor 2. Sub-factor 2 was that small business participation commitment document. They want to see that it's there. And remember, this is required for both small businesses and large businesses. So they want to see that it's there and it contains the information that they're requiring. So that's the third stage, and it's a pass-fail. If you pass that, then you go to the fourth stage, which is the past performance or factor 3 documents that you need to provide. These are a number of forms that you have to provide that we discussed earlier, plus the PPQs that you send to the contracting officers of your past performed contracts, and they have to fill out those PPQs and send them directly to the Air Force. The Air Force is going to review all of that, and if you're good there, you're awarded the contract. So there's no comparison again with other companies. You either have pass all these 4 points and you're awarded, or you don't pass it and you're not awarded. So that's essentially the process. Now let's look at partnering, because it's very important. Why is it important? Because essentially for those 40,000, minimum 40,000 points in the self-scoring matrix, you can actually use your partner's experience as well as your own. That's why teaming, whether it's a joint venture or a prime sub relationship, is very important to actually get on the CFT. So there are 3 ways of actually creating those partnering and teaming arrangements. You can have JVs, you can have prime sub relationships, and you can have obviously mentor protege JVs, again another type of JVs. Now these JVs could be with small businesses, with large businesses, doesn't matter. So JVs, prime subs, and mentor protege JVs. Now contacts can come from JV members or the subs. Now remember, in terms of the AS9100D certification, there are specific requirements. If you're a JV, then their certification must be in the name of the JV or all members of the JV. If one of your members does not have that certification, you are disqualified. So better would be if in that situation, a prime sub relationship might be better. So the prime only has to have the certification, but the subs do not have to have the certification. So if you're thinking of creating a JV, but one of your members does not have that certification, don't go down that road, because you will be disqualified. Create a prime sub relationship. That is better. And of course, you have the MPJV. Now, MPJVs, mentor protege JVs, have the same requirements as normal JVs. So if you have a mentor protege JVs, both the mentor and the protege must have the AS9100D requirement, certification requirement. So if you don't have that, don't use the mentor protege JV. Instead, use the prime sub relationship. Okay, there is one ambiguity. I've written it here. It might be a question, and it's been sent to the government. Hopefully that they will resolve it. The RFP states that the offer for FTE related and FCL scoring factors must be the prime. Now, this is a little bit ambiguous as to, if you're using contracts from your subcontractor, whether that FTE related, if the subcontractor was the prime, whether that's acceptable or not. So this is one of those points that has to be asked from the government, because it's not found in the RFP. I wanted to put it here for you so you understand that there is this ambiguity there with regards to partnering. Okay, so we are essentially done with CFT as a whole, but I did want to, because I myself have done over 100 self-scoring proposals, and there are different beasts, so to say, compared to the traditional proposal writing systems that are used. So I wanted to provide some experience sharing here, things like compliance and that sort of thing for your information. So what can go wrong in these types of proposals? Compliance is the most important issue in these self-scoring proposals. That's why reviews are really important, and most of the mistakes are due to people not being compliant with the requirements. Misunderstanding the requirements, obviously, not scoring yourself properly, not maximizing yourself, or actually underscoring yourself. substantiating your score. So maybe you have provided, you do have the experience, and you really deserve that point. But if you do not provide the proper documentation and proper signatures and everything, so you're not substantiating that score, and the government will just scratch it out. So you don't want to have that situation. So not substantiating your score properly, another point. Stretching the score too far. Sometimes, you're using contracts as experience that really you don't deserve the points. And if you go too far on that, there is that danger of being disqualified by the government. So don't go down that route. And then finally, not submitting the proposal correctly as the way they want it set up in terms of the documents, where to submit, and all that. So these are the possible mistakes that you can actually make in a self-scoring proposal. Okay, now let me emphasize on the compliance issue. I always show this in my webinars when it's a self-scoring proposal, because it depicts the reality of the situation. This is about GSA HCATS. It's another vehicle from a few years ago, 2-3 years ago, that I could actually get the numbers for how many were disqualified for non-compliance. Small businesses, you can see that the orange color is the eliminated proposals, nearly 70% for being non-compliant. Only 30% were awarded. So you can see that 70% of those proposal managers, and I'm sure that the proposal managers who created those were proficient, but self-scoring proposals are really a different beast, as I said. So the way of actually working on them is really different. The traditional way of creating a compliance checklist, the matrix, and then going through the contract, the RFP, and writing and things like that, it doesn't work here. Here, writing skills are not needed at all, or very minimal. Analytical thinking and document management are the most important things. That's why you get this graph shows the eliminated numbers. 70% for small businesses, and large businesses didn't do much better. 49% were eliminated, being disqualified for non-compliance. So you can see that you really need to spend enough time and energy on making sure that your proposal is compliant. Okay, so in terms of compliance, how to prevent it, a non-compliant proposal. So read the RFP and all the Q&As thoroughly multiple times. Create a reliable compliance checklist. Now, this compliance checklist is not the traditional compliance checklist that all proposal managers do. This has to do with how you actually score yourself. So the scoring plays into this. Do at least 2 rounds of compliance checks when you're finished with the scoring. Attention to detail is vital. Check every single item per the RFP sections L and M multiple times to ensure they are compliant. Discuss compliance with your team. Be a devil's advocate. Always assume that you've missed something. Always review how you can increase your score. You want to be the top 2 offer. Go for that. Now, utilize the third party to review your scoring and your proposal documents to have another set of eyes check your work. This is really important. I don't necessarily, this is not a sales pitch. I don't mean that you should give it even to another company. But within your organization, if you have people who have done self-scoring proposals before, by all means, make sure that they check your system, your scoring, and not once, multiple times. This is really important. Okay, an experience that we have gained through doing over 100, at least myself and our company has done, I think, over nearly 200 of these self-scoring proposals. The workload, so 50% usually goes through contract selection and partnering. Contract selection is not just deciding. You have to go through the documents, make sure that they're valid, they have signatures, the forms are there, and that sort of thing. So contract selection and partnering usually takes 50% of time and resources, and obviously money. Proposal preparation itself 25%, and then good chunk 20% goes to compliance reviews and sometimes more. So spend that much time on compliance. Multiple compliance reviews is really important, and then submission 5%. So this is the usual allocation of time and resources on a self-scoring proposal. Lastly, final recommendations for CFT specifically now. Do an initial score assessment and gap analysis. So sit down, go through this Excel sheet that the government has done. If you're working with a third party such as us or any other company, they usually have a form, so you can actually go through it much faster and get an initial score for yourself. And then do a gap analysis, meaning that, okay, so you got 35,000 points. Now, where are your gaps? Why do you do that? Because the gap analysis is important because, as I said, you can bring in partners and you can increase your score, but you need to know what type of experience your partner should have. So if you're missing 5,000 points, you want to bring in a partner that has 1 or 2 contracts that will give you those 5,000 points. So remember and go back to that table that I showed you, whether it was aircraft or non-aircraft, whether it's general, see where you are lacking, and then go for the partners that fill in those gaps. Now, maximize the use of partnering to increase your score that we discussed. Focus on high score items when partnering. So again, you don't want to bring a partner, go through all the logistics on signing agreement and everything, and just get 2,000 points from them, and still be missing, a few thousand points to be above the 40,000 points. Now, our recommendation is to, number 4, go for at least 50,000 points. So aim for 50,000. Why is that? This is an experience that we have gained through doing all these self-scoring proposals. At the end of the day, you don't know, even though they specify everything in the RFP, but how the government reviewers are going to look at your contracts, you don't exactly know if they're going to scratch this or that item or score. From the simplest things of, they're in a bad mood. Usually it's not bad because they do it multiple times with different people, to all the way to, for any reason you misunderstood something and, claimed a point for it, whereas you don't deserve it, or there are points that, as a whole, the government, sees it that you don't deserve that point. So they're going to scratch your points. You don't want to be just at 40,000. So if you lose 1 or 2 points here and there, you go below that and you're disqualified. So best thing is to aim for 50,000. We call it cushion points. You have to have 10,000 or at least 5,000 points as cushion points to make sure that you actually, at the end of the day, when the review is done, you are above 40,000. And again, remember, there's no competition, so ensure that you're above the acceptable level. Then ensure your proposal is fully compliant in form and format and in content. So just having, best proposal, maybe you had 60,000 points and you have everything in place, but you make a mistake in form and format and they disqualify you, you don't want to be there. So even if you're good in terms of points, you want to make sure that you do multiple reviews and you are in compliance in content as well as in form and format. Okay, we are done and we have nearly run out of time. We have run out of time. So, and there are a lot of questions I can see. So let me answer just a few and then I will try to answer the rest through email. Okay, so let's go through these questions, a lot of them. Steve asks, you mentioned that there are 2 pools for large and small companies. So how many are they going to pick for each? Well, Steve, they have said that there's no limit. So depending on which pool you go for, if you're awarded, you will receive the task orders under it, and there's no limit on the number that they're going to award under each pool. So if you pass the requirements, you're good to go. Let's see, Melissa's question. Can we use CPARs instead of PPQs? Yes, Melissa, the RFP mentions that you can actually use CPARs, and that's acceptable. Okay, there are a lot of questions about our services and cost of proposal development and reviews. For that, please contact Maron Freedy, my colleague, so that we can have a one-on-one call, answer your questions, and then provide you with the costs and etc. So now, if you're having difficulty downloading the slide deck that has our contact info, or you need the information, just write your email on the chat system, and we'll send you. I'll send you the document after the webinar. So let's answer another question. We're late though. Question from George. When did you say they are going to award the contracts? It is estimated that the awards will be made in August 2025. That's before the September start of the contract. So this is an estimate, August 2025, and we'll have to see. Now with that, sorry, we are out of time. So as I said, I will answer your remaining questions by email. There are a lot of these. Thank you everyone for participating in today's webinar, and we hope to see you in our future webinars. Check out our website for all planned future webinars, and have a wonderful afternoon. Thank you.